Batman, the world's greatest detective, the Caped Crusader, my favourite superhero. Batman is seen as the superhero with the largest amount of excellent movies and games, and because of that, the world has been blessed with excellent Batman stories. I wanted to compare, in my opinion, the 3 best Batman adaptations. The Batman, Batman Arkham City, and The Dark Knight. Lego Batman and Animated Batman, you both are great as well, but just not as cool as the other 3. Now, I've created 9 categories in order to find out which Batman adaptation is my favourite. Whichever adaptation comes first within a category gets 3 points, second gets 2, and the third gets 1. Whoever has the most points at the end wins. From this point forward, there will be major spoilers for these 3 Batman adaptations. With that being said, let's start with one of the most important ingredients to a good Batman adaptation: the protagonist. Which Batman is my favourite? When looking at each character, I ask myself some questions. Does he have a compelling character arc? Does he have great detective skills? Is he a great Bruce Wayne? And does he beat the shit out of his opponents? I'm not gonna lie to you guys, but I love a mean Batman. When I think about The Dark Knight, Batman isn't the first character that comes to mind because of how influential the Joker is in that movie. Bruce Wayne isn't really that prevalent in this movie and takes a step backwards compared to the previous film. So I think it's pretty easily the worst Batman out of the 3 in my eyes. I actually think Batman in the first film is way cooler, mainly because he has a lot more screen time and is the main focus of the film, whereas The Dark Knight focuses more on the story and its side characters, but also because he's a few cooler lines.
I swear to God. Swear to me!
It's actually quite close between the other 2, as Arkham Batman feels more comic accurate and uses his gadgets very well, whereas Pattinson has by far the best character arc. However, in many ways, they're quite similar. They both portray excellent detective skills, they like to brutally beat the shit out of people, and they both have the best suits. Pattinson uses nothing but vengeance as his motivation that strives to put fear into Gotham. From the opening scene, I am straight away terrified of him. However, as events unfold, and as he learns from his mistakes, he realizes that he needs to be more. He must be a symbol of hope for its citizens rather than a symbol of fear. It's a great arc, especially for a character that has so many adaptations and stories. Whilst Pattinson uses his actions to portray how brutal he is, Arkham Batman does this as well, along with sick fucking lines.
Face or legs? Which one do I break first?
No, look, don't hurt me. I'll talk.
Of course you will.
Even within detective scenarios, Arkham Batman feels way smarter, which I personally prefer over the one that is still learning. Both Bruce Waynes aren't really as prevalent as they could be. However, Arkham Bruce Wayne has a couple good lines that are a bit more memorable than Robert Pattinson. So, taking everything into account, I'm going to give a slight edge to Pattinson, mainly due to his excellent character arc, leaving Arkham with 2 points and The Dark Knight with 1 to start things off. Now, moving on to the other most important aspect of a good Batman adaptation is the story. Arkham City keeps gamers invested in the story because of how many threats there are. He has to deal with Joker poisoning Gotham, he has to maintain his secret identity, but most of all, stop Protocol 10. The story keeps hinting at what it could be, but just never tells us exactly what it is. And when it is eventually revealed, it has huge implications to the story and does not disappoint. Also, by making Batman sick, there is a lot at stake and he has only a certain amount of time to cure himself. Time constraints is one of the best ways to add tension to a story. The Batman is definitely the most mysterious out of the 3, which is why Batman's detective skills work so well. The 3-hour runtime feels completely justified as the story and mystery unravels at a slow pace, however is broken up with intense action scenes and surprising moments in between the chaos. But let's be honest, both these stories don't really compare to the story of The Dark Knight. So much happens in this movie. We have the LAPD trying to deal with the undercover mob, we have Harvey Dent being elected as mayor, Batman even goes to Hong Kong, and we haven't even mentioned the Joker yet. This movie feels like it has 3 or 4 climaxes, yet somehow the pacing is excellent. Things get so bad that Batman almost quits in the midst of everything, making his return all the more exciting. Not only do I think this is one of the best Batman stories ever written, I genuinely think it's one of the best thrillers ever written in any movie. The Dark Knight is a clear winner here for me, and it's honestly very close between the other 2. I personally found the discovery of Protocol 10 a bit more interesting than finding out who the Riddler is, but this can honestly go either way. 2 points for Arkham and 1 for the Batman. Now for the action, both films have excellent car chases that get you at the edge of your seat, as the result for both chases has huge implications to the story. Now whilst I think The Dark Knight has a slightly better car chase, the combat and gadgets on the Batman is far more engaging. It's actually one of my main criticisms towards the Dark Knight trilogy. is that whenever Batman is in combat, it honestly isn't very cool, especially compared to future Batman films. Now, admittedly, video games have a huge advantage when it comes to action, but don't worry, we'll fix that in the next category. The combat is so much fun. This game is now 13 years old and its mechanics are still a lot more fun and complex than a lot of modern games. It's not just the gameplay that gives Arkham the top spot though, it's how absolutely brutal he is. I love myself a Batman that breaks criminals' necks and paralyzes them rather than ones that just knock them out. This leaves Batman in second and The Dark Knight in third. Next up we have a category that gives video games a disadvantage in order to balance things out. Cinematography. While there are some shots within Arkham City that I would put as my background, part of the magic within the films is how excellently shot they are. The Batman has a certain style to it that makes its cinematography stand out from most other films. Batman's introduction is terrifying, in part due to the sound effects, but more so as to how he is shot. Many of the film's most uncomfortable scenes is when the film barely gives us information, but it shows just enough for us to know exactly what is happening. This is particularly effective within Riddler scenes, making the audience feel both uncomfortable and curious. Christopher Nolan can make beautiful looking movies when he wants to, but they don't really have a particular style like the Batman does. However, the cinematography shines when illustrating the setting. A bank heist, the beauty of Hong Kong, the ships. There are so many iconic shots that are visibly beautiful to look at. But to me, they're a bit more iconic due to the implications of the story rather than it being actually a beautiful shot. I would like to say it's close, but I'm not gonna lie, the Batman is the clear winner in this category. Having a certain style helps a lot, something the game and The Dark Knight lack. Speaking of cinematography, it can be used to enhance the atmosphere of Gotham and really bring it to life. The city within The Dark Knight surprisingly doesn't seem so bad. Like, I would live here before the Joker really took over, whereas the other two would be horrible to live in. When you fly past the criminals in Arkham City, you can actually hear their dialogue, giving the game more immersiveness. There are lots of side missions that make the city feel alive. However, I think the clear winner has to be the Batman, as the movie immediately throws you into this disgusting city where gangs are beating the shit out of random citizens. Moving on to the supporting cast, which doesn't include villains, meaning Arkham City is instantly lost, as Alfred and Robin, while good, are barely in it, and Catwoman kinda sucks. Speaking of Catwoman, she's really good in Batman. Their relationship feels very natural because of how much time they spend with each other. It's clear that they initially have indifferences, however learn to appreciate each other as the story unfolds. The chemistry between Commissioner Gordon and Batman is honestly really excellent, and Alfred is such a sweetheart. However, I prefer Alfred with inspirational quotes that genuinely impact Batman's decision going forward.
People are dying, Alfred. What would you have me do?
Endure, Master Wayne. Take it. They'll hate you for it, but that's the point of Batman. He can be the outcast. He can make the choice that no one else can make. The right choice.
Commissioner Gordon is the goodest guy imaginable, and his return is epic. Lucius Fox has an excellent personality, and Batman's trust in Rachel becomes his inevitable downfall. First goes to The Dark Knight, followed by The Batman and Arkham City. Now, for these last three placements, you can really put any of these stories in any order, as they're all brilliant at it, starting with something I value very highly, the soundtrack. For those of you who see my video on my top 10 favorite soundtracks, I mentioned The Batman in my honorable mentions and put The Dark Knight as my 6th favorite ever score. The Batman uses a score that really adds to both the atmosphere of the film, but to particularly make Batman scarier. It honestly sounds like a soundtrack from a horror film. However, The Dark Knight is a track I listen to literally all the time. Some of it makes you feel dread, relaxed, exciting, but most of all, uneasy. That scene where the boats are about to blow up is terrifying, and a huge reason is due to the score. And then the moment he decides not to use it, the score slowly comes back. It's simply brilliant, and the film is full of moments like this that really enhance scenes due to the excellent score. In case you guys haven't noticed, the soundtrack used within this video is in fact from Arkham City. Whenever I decide to replay Arkham City, I just sit there and listen to the main theme because it's my favorite one. Personally, Dark Knight is first, Arkham City is second, and The Batman goes third. Although it can really go anyway. Whew. Now this one is so close. The ending. Every single one of these stories has such a fucking good ending. Let's talk about the Batman first. He fulfills his character arc by saving the citizens of Gotham. The city is flooded, the Riddler has won, yet the audience is able to feel a small resemblance of hope because Batman is there to save everyone. The Dark Knight takes a more tragic ending. He's decided to take the fall for Harvey Dent. He believes Gotham is in a safer place by never revealing Harvey Dent's true actions. And at that expense, he becomes hated. It's a beautiful ending for one of the most selfless Batmans we've ever gotten. For me personally though, Arkham City has the second best ending out of every game, movie or show I've ever watched. It's only beaten by Inception. That Clayface twist still puts a smile on my face on my 5th playthrough. Not only that, but I still get chills from my favorite line.
Do you want to know something funny? Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
That actually is pretty funny.
It's so tough because The Batman is probably my top 20 favorite endings ever, and yet it's gonna finish last. That really speaks volumes to the quality of each conclusion. So, we've made it this far, and somehow they're all tied right now. No! Which means this next category reveals who the winner will be. And the next one is villains. The thing that makes these stories more memorable. They are all the driving force for the plot. Every single one of these stories has an excellent villain. In fact, 2 of these stories have multiple excellent villains. Now let's actually start with the film that has the most unpopular villain. I'm not gonna lie to you, the Riddler fucking sucks in everything he's in, including Arkham City. However, for the first time, he is really fucking good in The Batman. He commands every scene he is in. His insanity is terrifying, yet extremely realistic. He's extremely calculated, who feels like he's always one step ahead of Batman. Not to mention, but also some brilliant acting, which is true for all the villains in these stories. Arkham City has Mr. Freeze, who we genuinely develop empathy for. It contains my favorite adaptation of Harley Quinn. Ra's al Ghul is extremely intimidating, Hugo Strange feels like an unbreakable force, but most of all, the Joker is excellent. However, let's be honest, you guys knew which adaptation has the best villains. Not only is Heath Ledger's Joker commonly regarded as one of the greatest antagonists of all time, Harvey Dent is a super underrated villain as well. His transformation is completely justified and his impact for the ending of the film cannot be understated. But the Joker really is, for me, the biggest reason for why The Dark Knight is so fucking good. Similar to the Riddler, he is so calculated and always one step ahead. He steals every scene he is in. For the entire duration of the film, in the back of your mind you're thinking, what is Joker doing right now? What are his plans? He is such a huge factor for this story. I love that interrogation scene because we as an audience feel hopeless. Batman beats the shit out of Joker and he just laughs it off. Like, what can he even do in that situation? This for me has always been the best performance ever. So that means The Dark Knight wins, with Arkham in second and The Batman in third. Here comes the big question. Is this list complete bullshit? Well, that's for you to decide. I personally loved making it. You know, a lot of people will probably prefer acting over soundtrack, or maybe people will categorize Bruce Wayne as its own character. Stuff like that, and that's why I encourage you guys to make your own list. I'm probably going to make the same video, but for Spider-Man, so some suggestions would really help, you know. Should I separate Peter Parker and Spider-Man? Should I make story 5 points instead of 3? Stuff like that. I had a lot of fun making this. I fucking love all 3 of those Batman adaptations. I used to play Batman Arkham City as a kid, and I still play it now. The Dark Knight is my second favorite movie, and The Batman, when I watched that in the cinema, was so fucking good. Let me know how much you either agree or disagree with me. I would love to hear your guys' opinion. It is now 2 AM. I don't know why, but I'm at my most productive at this time. And I have to be up in like 7 hours, so I'm gonna go head off to sleep.